Welcome back to the David F. Haas podcast. In this podcast, I am going to break down why 99% of the world never changes and how to tap into the universal intelligence that has the answers to everything. This is what I've been doing for myself and for my clients for the last 10 years. And in this podcast, I'm going to break down what is infinite intelligence, how you tap into it, what are the common mistakes that are made. I'm going to give you some examples from my own personal life and clients' life. And I'm going to describe the benefits of learning how to get outside the circle of what you know so that you can tap into the infinite. I think this is going to be a highly valuable podcast, and I hope you enjoy it.
Meet David Haas, intuitive healer and transformative guide. After overcoming his own profound challenges, David discovered the power of inner healing. Now, he dedicates his life to helping others break free from addiction, burnout, and emotional pain through personalized one-on-one mentorship, immersive retreat, and transformative programs. David empowers high achievers to reconnect with their true selves and embark on a journey toward lasting well-being.
What's going on? You listen to the David F. Haas podcast. In this podcast, we are going to break down why 99% of the world never changes. This is something that I've been tuning into lately because I've been really trying to refine my message. And, there's whatever you want to call it, niching down or whatever. And so I've been reflecting on what makes my coaching, what I do so unique, and trying to put that into a message where I'm combining it with my place out at Lungo Vita and trying to kind of bring these two kind of businesses essentially together. And so as I kind of aligned with this thing, I was like, it's all really in alignment, which is true because Lungo Vita was created from the space of wanting to do more of the work that I do essentially and wanted to expose more people to it. And Lungo Vita was essentially just a vehicle to bring more people to it just because it's super attractive. People want to come out to Lungo Vita. But what I think people don't realize when they come out there at this point right now is what the actual benefit of Lungo Vita is. It's sure there's the hot tubs and the saunas and the domes are cool and there's wineries and all that, but actually what people are getting is they're getting unplugged and disconnected from the noise so that they can tap into a universal intelligence, infinite power of God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like when you're in the shower and you come up with a really good idea, we'll call it shower clarity. Well, there's a reason that we get shower clarity. It's because for a moment, and it's usually just a second, right? For a second, we get connected to the present moment. And in that present moment, we are connected to all. And in this podcast, what I'm going to go through is what my coaching method looks like, why it's unique, and why without learning this skill, 99% of the world will remain stuck or at the same level of consciousness or stuck in the same cycles and probably never change. And so in order to create real change, we have to get beyond the circle of what I know. And so in this podcast, I'll lay out what is the unknown and how do we tap in, how do you tap into it, common mistakes that are made. I'll give you some of my own examples, and then I'll lay out some of the benefits that come from really learning how to tap into this power, right? And so I guess the thing that we'll just start with is that my coaching system essentially is unique because I have always had, I would believe, this ability to go from mind, in my thoughts, to connected to something greater than myself. And because of that, when I'm sitting in coaching sessions, half the time what's coming through me and being spoken to the client isn't even coming from the circle of what I know. I'm not even accessing my own personal knowledge. Sure, there's elements of my own knowledge in there, but most of the time I'm connecting to source power. Let me just give you a quick example of that. And so I had a client in here yesterday, and we were trying to get to the root of what's really going on with her. And this visual came to me in the coaching session that she's kind of one of those plate spinners, if you can remember, the people that spin plates on sticks. And so they'll spin two plates on their hands, and they'll spin one on their chin and one on their forehead and one on their knee. And so it came to me, and so I was why is this coming into my awareness? And so that's, I think, the first thing that you need to recognize is that when these weird little things come into your awareness is where did that come from? And as you begin to develop this skill, you'll start to go through that door. So I noticed that this analogy came into my awareness, and I said, okay, let's go through this door. And so as I opened my awareness to this, came to me that she was spinning 8 plates. And so then what we did together is we walked through what each and every plate was. And so the source of a lot of her suffering comes from the fact that she's juggling all 8 of these plates at all times, so that any time that anybody comes in and nudges her, she has stress at work, she has problems with her kids, she has problems with relationships, it feels like all those plates are going to come crashing down. All right. And so imagine the stress of constantly spinning all of these plates and being fearful that if any other thing comes into your life, all of it's going to come crashing to the ground. And so what we did in this exercise that I don't want to say I created it. It came came through me was like, let's identify each and every one of the plates. And so after we identified all of the plates, I said, which is the one that sticks out to you most right now, right? And she had addiction was the one that stuck out to her most. And I said, okay, well, let's now go and recognize that we can put all of these other plates to the side and let's just deal with addiction and what's at the root source of the addiction. And so then when we did that, we ended up getting into awarenesses that would have probably have never been available through talk therapy, essentially. And so the thing that makes me, and I use the word me lightly because again, it's like, yes, I put myself out there to be a healer, to be a coach, to be a guide. And so with that intention alone, my intention is to help people end their suffering. And because of that, sure, can I claim ownership over it? Yes. But really the messages and the information, the clarity that is coming through me is not coming from me. So I don't like to claim ownership over it. But for now, for this purpose of the podcast, I will say so. So the thing that makes me unique is this ability to tap into that infinite. And now this was something that I think I always had, but also I want with 100% certainty know that everybody has this ability. We can all learn to step outside of the noise of day-to-day life and plug in. Now, for some people, it comes quicker. For other people, it's a skill that needs to be learned, but this is not like woo-woo stuff. Like I can give you example after example of how this is happening all around you at all times. The only reason that you're not tuned into it is because you never tuned your awareness into it, right? And I've given this example like countless times on this podcast, which is like the red car example. It's like, how many red cars have you seen, driving on the road today? It's like, you probably haven't seen any. But the second you bring awareness to red cars, and this would be funny if you're driving right now, just bring awareness to a red car and you'll start to recognize there's red cars all around you. And so it's not that the red cars weren't there, it's just that you hadn't tuned your awareness into it. And this is what's happening with this connection to all, is that we're just not aware it's there, right? But it's been all around us at all times. It's like, this is why we have coincidences. That's right. It's like we're all interconnected and we start picking up on, a friend or something before, and then all of a sudden we bump into them. It's like, this is not, there is no such thing as coincidences. And that was one of the first things that I realized on this journey. And so as you start to realize this, you can start just opening your awareness to this collective consciousness, this intelligence. And so let me get into what that is before I go too deep here. So essentially what collective consciousness is, or infinite intelligence, or God, or the universe, whatever it is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present energy that connects each and every one of us. And what I've been kind of like liking the analogy of this lately is like, think of it as like empty space. Okay. And so if you think of empty space, there's empty space between me and the camera right now. There's empty space between where I'm recording this and where you're listening to this. And that empty space connects all of us. So it's everywhere. It's all knowing. And how is it all powerful? Well, one of the reasons that it's all powerful is that there's more energy in 1 square inch of empty space than is required to create the entire universe. And so what does that mean? This is not like woo-woo stuff. It's like, if you look at 1 square inch of empty space and you look through it in a microscope, what are you going to see? You're going to see molecules, particles, atoms, protons, electrons. And if you begin to split those atoms, those protons, electrons, neutrons, if you begin to split them, what happens? You could get an explosion. This is essentially the atomic bomb. And so all of the energy that is required for everything already exists, and it's right in front of us, even though we can't see it. Okay. And so now, is the empty space consciousness? Yeah, probably. I guess it's all connected. But I just like the analogy of it because you can really understand how the empty space and the air and everything that I'm breathing in right now eventually will be the same empty space that someone in Russia is connected to. All right. And so it's the thing that interconnects us all, the entire universe. Okay. And so that empty space is like a hard drive, and everything that's ever happened over the course of creation of the universe is stored in that hard drive, and we all have access to it. And so the reason that we have lost access, the reason that 99% of the people remain trapped and never change, is because the ego, which is just the mind, is trying to figure it out, is trying to solve the problem, right? And so if you have a problem, I want you to just as you listen to this podcast, like just think about the one thing that has been like an issue for you your whole entire life. And maybe it's like you keep choosing the wrong partner. Maybe you have addiction issues. Maybe you're working hard and never getting ahead. Maybe you hate your job. Like whatever it is, this is a cycle that you've been trapped in, and you have been trying to figure this thing out your whole entire life. Okay. And in fact, the trying to figure out how to get out of this is actually becoming a source of suffering. It's like trying to figure out, like, let me use my own example just to like make it practical. Like one of the things that I feel that I've never truly fully unlocked is like this like really real abundant wealth. Just to be completely transparent, it's like to be in a space where I feel like I have so much money coming in that I don't even know what to do with it. Like that's the way I would kind of view abundant wealth. And now I've had glimpses of it, but it still wasn't like big giant money. It was like a lot of money coming in where I could kind of do whatever I wanted, but it wasn't like flying on private jet kind of wealth. Okay. And this is my own personal example. So I'm just being honest with you here. And so I have been trying to figure that out for since I was 10 years old, right? 46. So 36 years. I've been trying to figure out what the code is to abundant wealth. And I haven't even stepped out of it. I do this work and I haven't even stepped into the knowledge that already exists to go there. Like I haven't even done it. And so now I've been going the slow way, which is the ego way. And if you think about an intention, let's just say we have an intention to be wealthy, we are going to be pulled by that intention. And the path towards getting to that intention is like this very, very slow and subtle curve. But if you look at it over the course of, a lifetime, the difference between, you're probably not going to see this in the camera, but the difference between where you were and where you are is this gigantic leap. Okay. And so if we go the slow way, it's going to feel like nothing is changing. It's going to feel like we are still stuck in this struggle, in this grind. If we go the quick way, which is by learning to step out of trying to figure it out, and we plug into this infinite intelligence, we may take gigantic leaps. And I'm going to explain one quickly to you here. And so as I started to try and unpack, because I had this intention to be wealthy, as I started to unpack, like, what is it that I'm missing with respect to wealth? And I started digging into this work, which is learning how to tap into this unknown. It came to me that desire, and this is through learning. And so I guess learning how to get outside the circle of what you know is huge, but expanding the circle of what you know is not a problem either. And so one of the ways I expanded the circle of what I know is I began reading a lot of books by Dr. David Hawkins. And so recognizing through that reading that desire was actually blocking me from allowing wealth to flow into my life. Because I wanted it so badly, I was actually pushing it away. And like, you can just pick up on this. It's like, I have a client that's a real estate agent. He calls it commission breath, right? It's like the real estate agent that just wants the sale, and you can actually like smell it on him. It's like someone that just wants money, right? You can just pick up on that they are only in it for their best interest. They're not actually trying to deliver value. And so as I was recognizing that I was in that state, I was desire, like I was saying that my life will not be good until I get to this wealth. And all I cared about was making money, and every single person around me could pick up on it except for me. And so as I began tuning into this, even though I fully didn't understand it, I used this method. I started getting silent and I started saying like, what is the source of this desire? Because I began to believe that it was a block, right? Through expanding the circle of what I know by reading more and exposing myself to more knowledge. But if this is a circle of what you know and you read a little bit and your circle gets this big, we are still insanely limited because what you have yet to know can be represented by this entire room. And so the goal of what I do and what I do when I coach my clients is I don't even want to solve from this place. I want to solve from the infinite. And so when I started to recognize that this was possible, I started getting silent. And so in one of the meditations, I'm sitting there and then I was just saying, and to me it's God, and I was just like, God, like, what is the deal with this desire? Because I see it's a limitation. So like, just show me, like, what is it? And in that meditation, that's when this moment in my childhood, which I've talked extensively on this podcast about. So when these three girls pulled me aside in grade school and basically proceeded to tell me that I was a smelly kid. And so in this meditation, I'm talking about desire and money, and I'm being brought back to this moment of the smelly kid, and I was lost in it. And like I was replaying the whole incident, and I was seeing it all like it was really happening. This is something that had been repressed, meaning I had forgotten about this thing. And so all of a sudden I'm hearing it. It comes into my awareness that I'm there. I'm in this moment. And I say, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I'm here for desire. And then in that opening of the door, by questioning why this had come into my awareness, the answer flooded into me, which was that, oh, the reason that I want wealth is so that I never experience this shame ever again. And so that recognition took my desire from money from like a 10 out of 10 to like a 1 out of 10, right? And so because I healed from the shame, I was okay in the shame. And the reason I'm okay in the shame, because I'm telling the story right now on the podcast. I was okay in the shame. I let myself feel and process through that shame. And so now when I was no longer trying to get so that I no longer felt this unconscious shame, then my whole entire energy shifted. My whole entire business has shifted. So like Treehouse, like I ran Treehouse for 20 something years, and I'm running Treehouse, and everything was about getting. And the whole entire time it was a grind and it was a struggle. The second I had this realization, I completely shifted to giving. Instead of trying to get money from my customers, I shifted to how could I give to the people that were helping me have this business, that were keeping my staff employed? How could I give to them? And then we started doing things like the 12 nights of Christmas, where we just had these huge giveaways. We did customer appreciation nights where we did $250 everything. We gave people free slices of pizza. We bought people drinks. We did all of these things. And because of that, people loved Treehouse. And this is what none of my competitors could ever pick up on. It's like, because when you came into Treehouse, we thanked you for coming in. We usually, bought you something, made you feel welcome, whatever that may be. You could literally sense the gratitude that we had for you being our customer. And when you left, we said, thank you for coming, right? And so because of that shift from trying to get from people to trying to give to people, my level of wealth like 10x'd. I went from being like $350,000 in debt to making $350,000 a year. And so then I was like, oh shit, like this is real. Now this is an answer that you could spend your entire life trying to solve and you would never get it by trying to add more knowledge, right? And so by just making this one shift, I took that leap to stepping out of desire. And now there's still something in me, and it's still being revealed to me. And it's about like maybe a lack of belief in self or something like that. I'm slowly unpacking it. But this is a common mistake that I wanted to bring up, was when we do this, when we start to experience this, the common mistake is to continuously try and solve. Like the mind, the ego, wants us to believe that we are it. And because of that, it will continuously justify its own existence. And one of the ways it does that is through trying to solve problems, right? It wants to claim ownership over how you fix this issue. But that moment right there where I talk about this moment, that's like the ego knew, and there's a sense of knowing from the ego that it couldn't claim ownership over that awareness. Like that awareness came from outside of the ego. And so when this happens, we begin to connect more with this higher self that is connected to all and less with ego. But the ego is tricky, and it wants us to believe that we are it, and it will continuously try and solve. And just as I laid out here in the podcast for you, as I'm kind of unpacking my own shit, it's like I have still been trying to allow the ego to solve for this abundant wealth for 36 years, and I haven't done what I know is possible for myself, which is to get silent and be like, what is going on? What am I missing? Show it to me. What is that? What am I holding on to? What needs to be let go of? I have been trying to solve this thing for 36 years, and the answer is available to me in an instant. But because the ego wants to make me believe I am it has kept me from doing that. And so now that I'm actually having this awareness on the podcast, when I get off this podcast, I'm going to start plugging into this motherfucker, right? Because I want that to be revealed to me. And I know I'm done trying to figure it out, because I've been trying to figure it out for 36 years and I haven't gotten really anywhere besides the one time when I stepped out of the mind and I connected to what was at the source of my desire. And from that moment, my level of wealth completely shifted, right? And so I just need to do it again. And so another example of this would be like with addiction. And so people, anyways, she's like addicted, and she's addicted to heroin or something along those lines. And she says this one really powerful thing, and maybe if you weren't kind of tuned into this work, you wouldn't pick up on it. But she says to her, she's talking to her mom, and her mom is just basically saying like, why can't you just step out of this addiction? And she's like, don't you think that every moment of every single day I say tomorrow's going to be the day when I stop using, drugs, right? And every single day she disappoints herself, and the cycle continues. And so this is like a micro example of like what is happening with every single person. It's like this is like the I'll start on Monday with respect to people that want to get into shape. It's like this cycle. And if you really like just take a step back from whatever your I'll start on Monday is, if you really take a step back from that, you're going to recognize that you've been in that cycle for decades probably. Right. And so the point that I was getting at is, in order for someone to break something as serious as an addiction, it can't be solved from the mind. We have to step outside of that and get to the root. And so when I was doing mine with addiction, so, it started coming into my awareness that alcohol was a huge block in me tapping into that abundant wealth that I'm talking about. Right. I guess that was another big leap there. And so this is another thing that ego will do. It'll dismiss like your progress, right? And so just by setting that intention, we will be pulled towards having everything uncovered so that we can eventually fulfill that intention. And whether you do it in this life or the next. So as you can see, I've been being pulled towards fulfilling the intention of abundance, if you want to call it that. And so alcohol was one of those things that was blocking me from that abundance. And so I started tuning into like, what's the deal with alcohol? And now here's an interesting thing. I went to a healer. And so what is a healer? Is basically you lay on a bed and she's going to put her hands over you and she's going to say like, she's going to tap into that all-knowing power and get right to the source. And this is something that I do in my coaching as well. It's like I do spiritual healing treatment so we can get beyond the noise of the mind. We just go right to the root. And she's waving her hands over me and whatever. And I said, what do you think's going on with my drinking? And she's like, let me feel. And she's like, I think it's self-doubt is what she said to me. And I was like, that made no sense to me because I felt like I was a confident person. Right. And from the time she said self-doubt to the time I actually quit drinking was probably about 3.5 years, I think. And when I quit drinking is when I realized what she had said 3.5 years ago was the source of my addiction, which was essentially I didn't believe that I would be accepted, that I would be cool, that I would be loved without alcohol. And that realization hit me like a ton of bricks. And when it did, I could see the timeline from when she told me that to all the other tiny little micro realizations that had to happen. I could see it all in a flash. And it felt like this gigantic leap, but it was really this long, slow, drawn out healing process. And so without her pointing that out to me, I would have never gone on the path of uncovering that awareness for myself. And so when I did, after years of trying every variation of moderation, that day I set a date to stop drinking, and then I haven't drank ever since. Like, this is the power that exists. I didn't have to go to AA. I didn't have to do any of this. And so what this learning how to tap into this infinite intelligence looks like, as like an example, is like, you know, if you remember like old cartoons where like the cartoon character, there'd be a leak in the dam and he'd put his finger in his dam, and then another leak would pop over here, and then he'd put his finger in, and then another leak would pop and he'd put his toe in. And this is what it feels like when we have a problem that we've been trying to solve our whole entire life. Is like no matter how many fingers and toes you plug into this dam, it feels like it's still leaking. It feels like the problem is not going away. And so then what do? We start reading books on how to patch the dam, and we start bringing in help, and we start hiring people to try and help us, therapists, coaches, whatever, to try and help us plug these holes in the dam. And it's exhausting to be like, you know, to be clear, to be honest about it. What the feeling is, it's like, it feels like you can never get ahead. It feels like you're hopeless, probably a better word. And so what I'm talking about when we connect to the source of the issue, what it would look like in this example would be to understand why we were holding the water back in the first place. And so if we looked at it, we might uncover that we have a fear that if we let the dam go, that we are going to die, or that we are going to be poor, or that we are going to lose, or we are going to suffer. And when we recognize that that's an illusion that we have just created to protect ourselves, we can just let the water flow. So then all of the things that we've been trying to do to figure out just go out the window, and we effortlessly solve the problem for good. So this is the power that comes from connecting to the infinite, right? And so what I want to lay out here in the next part is like, how do you do it, right? And it's like, I think I was in some ways lucky because I had a natural ability, I would say, to connect to that. So as I started learning these methods and mechanisms, it came very natural to me. And I've seen that in my clients where they can pick it up quickly. And I've seen it in my clients where it takes more time. But I think the biggest thing is that we are doing all kinds of things for, like, you know, like our health, our wealth, and our hygiene. You know, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair, you take a shower, you work out, you exercise, you're trying to eat good, you try and make money. But like, what are you doing for your soul, essentially, right? And the answer that most people say is like nothing, right? And so what we want to do is we want to step out of the noise of the mind, right? Because the noise of the mind is the thing that is blocking this connection to all. And as you begin to learn how to do this, in the beginning, it'll feel frustrating, right? But one of the things that you'll recognize is that a lot of the noise of the mind has been created by the protections that the mind has put up to protect you from feeling some sort of pain. So for example, in my desire example, it was like desire was the noise that the mind created to make sure I never felt the shame of being less than ever again, right? And so that filled every waking second of my thoughts. So as I learned how to begin to step out of that, those thoughts began to reduce, and I had more ability to plug in because my mind wasn't so noisy. Now, the challenge that we have today is that we are not only filling our minds with the noise of our protections, we're also filling our minds with like the noise of like social media and whatever, you know, the internet, Netflix, like it's just like this constant noise. And so this is what the merger of Lungo Vita and what I do is like when you come out to Lungo Vita, you get disconnected from all that. Like, yeah, you can use your cell phone, but it's like the cell phone signal sucks and we have no Wi-Fi, and we did that on purpose, right? And so now you are getting disconnected and you're getting that shower clarity because you're finally experiencing. And here's a wild thing. It's like, even in like a second of present moment, you might get the clarity that you've been missing for your whole entire life, right? And so as you begin to clear the noise of the mind, clear the protections, then what we want to do is we want to start just getting silent, right? We want to start just connecting to the silence. And then the clarity comes from the silence. If you think about like the silence as the ocean, the message that you receive would be like a flying fish jumping out of the ocean, right? And so as you are connecting to this silence and you feel like you have removed yourself from mind, it's like when you get kind of like lost in the meditation, that's where that clarity is going to come through, okay? And when that clarity comes through, it's sometimes not so clear, if that makes sense, right? So sometimes we'll get clarity, like for example, as I'm sitting in a meditation for desire, trying to break free from desire, I get this image of this moment in my childhood that I've forgotten about. So if I didn't realize, I would have just let that pass and move on and keep trying to solve. But instead, what I did was, because I felt that came from nowhere, it came from the silence, then I said, well, let me go through the door of this, much like I did with my client the other day. It's like when the plate example popped into my awareness, I said, let me open the door and go into what this is about. And so as I opened that door, that's when it was revealed to me in like a second. So sometimes when we're sitting in these meditations and we're in this really nice space of present moment, which pretty much no one's connecting to, like just pretty much no one's connecting to it at all, you have to learn how to go through the door of whatever comes into your awareness. And now when you get the answer, there will be a sense of knowing. There will be a sense of like, holy shit, I can't believe that I was unaware of this my whole entire life. Like that's the sense that comes. Now, the benefit to this is that as you get better and better, you don't need to sit and do a meditation. You can literally just ask and say, hey, like, what's the deal with this? And then just wait. And because you are good at eliminating the programs of the mind and you've been doing this work, which is kind of like what I lay out in my coaching program, as we begin clearing that noise, what will happen is the answers will just start coming to you, right? It's just like problems just get solved, right? The thing that you've been trying to figure out your whole entire life, when you finally step out of figuring out, that's when the answer finally comes, right? And so as you get better, you get more connected, the answers start to come quicker and quicker and quicker. And then the other benefit of doing this work is that you can stay on the crest of the wave of creativity. So essentially, like, everybody's just copying everybody else, right? But the people that really create something that is like stands the test of time, why Treehouse is still the oldest bar downtown Windsor, is because I was able to connect to what no one else was doing. And not that no one else was doing it, but in my area, no one else was doing it. I was able to connect to what would make that place stand the test of time, right? And none of my other competitors could figure out what I was doing. While the economy was dipping and everyone else was going out of business, we were expanding and increasing by 30% a year. You know, this is why Lungo Vita went from being a dilapidated trailer park to, in 3 years, being this amazing resort retreat center that is like being flooded with demand, and it's only increasing. It's because we're on the crest of the wave of creativity, right? And so this is how you do what no one else is doing. If you want to talk about like making money or business, it's like you want to do what no one else is doing. There's a great book out there called Blue Ocean Strategy, right? It's like Airbnb was like blue ocean, right? It's like an industry that didn't even exist, and Airbnb comes along and says, hey, look, this is what we're going to create. It's like that was a blue ocean. Because of that, like everyone's scrambling to try and like keep up with them, essentially, right? Even though Airbnb has its problems, but whatever, you get the idea, right? And so this is what we want to tap into. And when we learn how to do this, we can be abundant essentially for life, right? We can have everything that we've ever desired, everything that we've ever wanted. It could just come flowing into our lives. And so this is why I think this is the most important thing. If you're stuck and you've been trying to solve, it's like the trying to figure out is actually probably the biggest source of the problem. What we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to step out and connect. And so that comes from getting silent consistently, recognizing that the ego wants to solve it, wants to figure it out, and to step out of that solving and just go to the silence. The third thing would be beginning to clear the noise of the mind's protections. So we got to start recognizing what the mind is protecting us from so that we can clear that noise more and more. And then, the third is just practicing. And the more you practice, the more you get the answers, the more you begin to trust that this exists and it's available to us all, the more you'll go there. And I'll give you one more example. So I had a cat for like 20 years, and one day we came home and the cat was like acting really weird, and she was an old cat, and she used to like jump from our kitchen table to our island, and as she got older, she like started like missing and like falling on the ground. And so what I think happened, which we don't know, but she probably missed and fell on her head, and she was like out of it. She wasn't eating, she was breathing heavy, and so we went to bed that night thinking like, oh, let's see how she is in the morning. And so we got up in the morning, she was the exact same. We could just tell that something was off. We spent the entire day and night, we didn't sleep very well from that time of night, trying to figure out what it was that we should do with the cat. Like, should we put the cat down? She's 20 years old. Should we take her to the vet? Should we do whatever? And so my wife, said to me, because I was really into like tapping in, she's like, why don't you just go meditate on it and see if we can get an answer? Because we were just going back and forth. We're asking everyone, calling our friends. We're trying to plug the hole of the dam, which is the cat is sick, right? And it may die. And so then when I sat in meditation, I was just like, what is it that's supposed to happen here? Like, what is it that I'm not seeing? And then it's like, as soon as I got silent, like it just came to me. It was like, the cat's going to die no matter what, right? It was just like a sense of knowing. And so it's like, you can choose how the cat's going to die. You can let the cat stay with you and die in your house, which may be prolonged, or you can take it to the vet and put it down. And so it was like, whoa, it was just like so clear. And I came out of that meditation, came down to try and tell it to my wife, and I just cried because it was sad, because there was a sense of knowing that was the right answer, right? And so finally, after hours and hours, 15 hours of trying to figure it out, I just connected to the clarity. We took the cat to the vet and put it down. And while it was super sad, all of the figuring out was a protection from the pain of the grief that we were about to experience. And so once I recognized that I could feel the grief, and the grief would be like the dam, coming back to this example, I could feel the grief and I could be okay in the grief, the decision came to me in an instant. And so this is the power that exists. And this is what I continue to use all the time. And as I've gotten better, this is what I use for my clients. So like when I'm sitting, there'll be times, and I'll just be honest, it's like there'll be times when my client's sitting across from me with a problem, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to say to this person. And then I just tune in and I say, well, I'm here to help. I'm here to be of service. So, you better give me the awareness that's required to help this person. And then without hesitation, that awareness always comes in. I'm like shocked sometimes after I've kind of finished saying what I'm saying. And those are usually the sessions that are the most powerful. It's when we're both the client and I are outside of mind, and we're tapping into the source of the infinite intelligence that exists, that already has the answers to everything. So I guess where I want to leave this thing is there's nothing to figure out. In fact, figuring it out is the source of suffering, and it's the source of not being able to connect to the answer that already exists. And when you begin to learn this, you begin to practice this, you essentially become unlimited. And that's where I'm constantly, for myself, moving more and more towards at all times, because my intention is enlightenment. My intention is to continue to move up the scale of consciousness. And because of having that intention, I'm being pulled in that direction at all times. Even just laying out this process has forced me to align further with that intention. And so this is what's available for all. It's not just unique to me. I think that's the thing that most people need to realize, is that we all have this ability. Life doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be flowing and easy and effortless and fun. Yes, there will be challenges, but you face those challenges with courage and recognizing that no matter what happens, you are going to be okay. And when you get to that space, it's a great world to live in, no matter what's going on, no matter who's attacking you, whatever's happening. It's just like you just enjoy life. And that's what I want for everyone that listens to this podcast. So anyways, I hope that served you, and we'll see you guys again next week for another episode.